G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back, finally, to another video. And here we go with the next Manufacturers Series test season number 3, the third test. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of test seasons going on at the beginning of Gran Turismo 7, but that kind of makes sense because there's still plenty of issues to sort out. But for this little test season here, it's only 3 rounds, went over the weekend. I'm just going to sign up quickly with Genesis again because I've driven the cars before. Also, there's been a physics update, so the update 1.13 brought in some physics updates, which made these cars a little bit easier to drive. What it actually did was sort of reduce the random oversteer and just make the cars a little bit more stable in general. It also, quote unquote, changed, or maybe not quote unquote, but paraphrasing, like changing the physics of all 4 brakes, so overall braking distances are shorter. Basically, it's an understeer update, so especially the Genesis X really required that. But in lieu of the new update, we have, of course, once again chosen Genesis, and we've gone into what is going to technically be the first race at a brand new track layout. It's Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. I always love saying that. It's just Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps with the extended pit lane, and they've decided to call this layout Spa 24-hour layout, which is quite a compared to how all the other tracks are named in the game. I think Spa 24-hour layout is a very casual, colloquial name. But anyway, we go out for qualifying. We find ourselves in Asia Oceania top split here, and we come out for the qualifying session behind Tenagazaru, who's a very fast Japanese player. But we're not sticking behind him, we're not mucking around. You know me, I don't like to muck around with all this slipstream nonsense. I'm just going to go out on my own because I feel like I can focus on my driving and not worry about braking a little bit earlier or turning in a little bit earlier. We go for the first qualifying lap in the session. We come up behind Mansell Drift at the end of it, but it's not too bad. He's at a 2:15.2, and Mansell Drift pulls out of the way, and we're going to get through turn 1. Make sure we get the car turn, and look how much we can commit to the throttle now that we don't have the car oversteering all over the place. We're slightly up on that first sector split there, just a little over half a tenth there, and at the second sector split, we're 2 tenths up. And by the end of the lap, we're 3 tenths up for a 14.9, which isn't too bad at all. I'm going to show you this lap here, however, because this is going to be my quickest of the session. We come out of the bus stop chicane up behind ToughRam driving the Ferrari 458, and we're going to head into turn 1, braking just after the 100 meter board, and we get turned in for turn 1, the source hairpin. Not the best hairpin, we probably could have downshifted to first for some extra rotation. ToughRam gets that even worse and just completely backs out of the lap to make sure he doesn't give me any slipstream, which is important for ToughRam, of course. He doesn't want anybody else just going really fast for no reason, because it puts him at risk of sort of losing spots in qualifying. But Rouge Radeon flat out on these soft tyres we've got on for qualifying, heading down the Kemmel Straight up towards the Com chicane, looking on the left hand side, braking just after the start of the curb in the qualifying session, get that trail braked into the first apex of Le Com, and we get through there nice and gentle, keeping the car balanced, make sure we meet the apexes, and no need for any brakes after you get off the brake at the end of the straight. Braking just on the start of the curb here for Ravage, make sure we keep it nice and tight because it's sort of downhill and a little bit off camber, so we have to make sure the car doesn't wash wide, and then gentle on the brakes and turn it into No Name Corner or Jackie X Corner, and that corner is actually going to be a pretty difficult one for me to get right today, but we'll see how that develops as we go on. Braking just after the 50 meter board before the electronic flag hanging off the fence on the right hand side for Pouon. Get straight back on the power and make sure to keep the track within track limits, braking just on the start of the curb on the left hand side once again for La Fagnes chicane this time. Keep it nice and tight for the first one to open up the second one to get a nice straight run out. Look how early we can get on the throttle there, and then heading down towards the Stavalos, braking just before the start of the curb on the left hand side again, and then make sure we keep it all within track limits here. This corner can actually be done flat out if you get the turn in directly correct, but a slight lift is generally what you need in order to get through there safely without sort of running off the track. And then we're going to be heading up through Blanchimont, through turn 16, through turn 17, which is Blanchimont right here, flat out, of course, on the soft tyres. and heading up towards the bus stop chicane, braking just halfway between the 150 and the 100 metre boards. Get it turned in using a low to the curb to try and minimise the distance, short shift up to second, and get the car nice and squarely on the power on the exit there, up towards the line. Yes! Oh, wow, okay. Alrighty. Top 10. Bloody hell, that's about all you can hope for in this split. But anyway, with that qualifying out of the way, it's time to enjoy the brand new Manufacturer Series introduction. Brand new introduction there, how good is it? That's going to be what we're looking at for the duration of Gran Turismo 7. But for this race now, we start 8th with our qualifying time for 2:14.4, which is actually quicker than my time trial time. But anyway, we have to get settled into the race. Make sure to check out my podcast in the description below. And let's get on with it in the slipstream of Okamu here. These are all drivers I've never really raced before, so it's kind of pretty promising that I'm actually within the top 10 in Asia plus Oceania. I'm not just talking Oceania, which I'm normally in the top 10 of. It's Asia and Oceania. Top split, top 10. Like, it's a place where that I never expected to really be, but here I am. I think the Genesis was a pretty good car now after the physics update, so I think that probably partially explains my pace that I was displaying around here, but I've still got 12 laps to do it, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's an easy no stop, or not so much easy, as demonstrated by me going wide at that particular corner that I mentioned before was actually going to be a little bit of a pressure point for me today. I've just dropped off the back of Okamu a little bit thanks to running wide at Jackie X corner, and I don't quite get Poo on right either, and that gap just opens up even more to about half a second behind him, or a little over half a second. But then we're going to be coming in towards the braking zone for the bus stop chicane, and we catch right up to the back of Okamu again as they're all sort of holed up behind each other, just, you know, backed up, concertina effect up as they all hit the braking into the slow corner. Everyone brakes slightly earlier, and when there's 7 of them, one after the other, you know, by the time the 7th person brakes, they're braking quite significantly earlier compared to how you would when you're on your own like me. So that's why I was able to gain so much time on that particular occasion, and we exit the first turn to see there's a massive gap behind, and we're still behind Okamu as we come up to the end of lap 2, run a little bit wide, just as KK Spirit R does, driving that Nissan GT 500, I think is what it's called. And oh dear, we catch right up to the back of him, slight bit of a bump. He's got a half a second penalty there, so I'm now getting sort of held up by Spirit here a little bit, and that gap that was so massive behind is now closed to about 4 tenths ahead. We try to switch to the inside, but the gap doesn't open up soon enough. We end up running into the back. I have to take avoiding action and go to the outside there. Try and go around the outside. There's a bit of contact there, and I'm levered off the track onto the AstroTurf, and I return to the track. What the hell happened there? And I've just been sort of shuffled off the track there. I've got dirty tyres now as well, and I've lost a couple of positions because of it. That's kind of frustrating too, because Spirit is going to serve that penalty shortly, but I've sort of been shafted, for lack of a better word, down into 10th. And we're going to head into this corner now, and I've just completely made a hash of it. This is what I mean. I just haven't done enough practice, and I think it's Atom behind me now, and I get a half second penalty because of it. Atom overtakes me for the top 10 there, so this race is really taking a big downward spiral. So we're going to have to serve this penalty on the only penalty gate at Spa now. It's on the back straight. There's no longer one on the Kemmel straight, which I find interesting. I'm going to get overtaken by Takuan and Tenagazaru again, coming into Lacombe chicane. This time we just hang behind, and Chupagetti sends one down the inside in what is an absolutely beautiful dive bomb there. No issues making the apex, so that is all fair game from Chupagetti. He's driving that Subaru Wrx, which is actually probably the most OP car in Group 3 at the moment, although to be fair, Group 3 is a lot more balanced than it once was. We overtook somebody else serving a penalty. We make a mistake at No Name or Jackie X corner again. This one's even worse because we kind of get sucked off onto the grass a little bit. We don't actually sort of get returned to the track. We fall off the other side of the curb, and it just sort of pushed us and sort of, you know, shepherded us off into the barrier, which is no good. We lose a further position. Alright, let's just bring it home. We lose a further position to Toy Bobu there, and by this particular point I was sort of pretty done with this race. I don't really care what happened. I think there was you know, some battling between Tanagazaru and Toy Bobu, or Toy Boo Boo, because we overtook Tanagazaru, who then makes a mistake in the braking, smashes into the barrier as... What the hell happened there? Oh, I'm gonna have to check the replay. I didn't feel any contact. I did think for a moment that maybe I shuffled him off onto the left-hand side there, and he ended up spearing off to the right because he got edged into the grass, but it wasn't the case. After looking at simply the radar, I found that there was plenty of space between us, and then the Nesson serves their penalty. That's pretty much the end of the race, but coming out of this corner here, I just run wide. Oh no! Just pushing way too hard on the worn tyres, and I correct it and catch the grass on the other side of the track, which is what sent me spinning. So Toy Boo Boo gets past me again for 13th. Such a good drive at the end. So yeah, look, I don't really like making mistakes like that, but this race had sort of already gone down the toilet, so I wasn't too worried. I was more just like disappointed that I wasn't able to avoid the mistake, but in terms of the race result, the mistake didn't really have too much of an effect on anything, because the race was already so bad that I had already decided I was going again. So that 13th position there was no good. It was about 192 points, which is absolutely nowhere near what I would traditionally accept for a round of manufacturers, and given that we're in the Genesis X, which appears to be a pretty good car as I mentioned before, we definitely want to make sure we are doing a little bit better than 192 points. So we go into the next slot, go out for qualifying. Something I didn't mention in the first slot is that there's actually a slight bit of moisture on the track when you first go out for qualifying, but by the end of the qualifying session there, it just about dries up. So the weather condition is sort of it's just about finished raining, and the track is drying. It's nowhere near wet enough to actually even really drive any differently than you would on the completely dry track, so there's no real concern for that slight bit of moisture. But by this particular time, in the end of the qualifying session for this second slot, you can see that the water surface, or the surface water indicator, is actually completely empty. So the track's absolutely bone dry now. It's just a little bit cloudy, but that will clear up as we sort of go on. As you can see, it's gotten a little bit brighter as we're facing towards the south end of the track, and there's still some thick, heavy cloud facing more up towards the north end, as you can see here, although it is beginning to clear up. This is the end of the qualifying session, my last attempt at a lap. Oh, actually, no, I've got 50 seconds to go, don't I? So this will be my second last attempt at a lap, but I do believe this is going to be my fastest lap of this particular qualifying session. You can see the previous best for 2:15.3 is eclipsed by the 2:15.0. Still about 6/10 away from what I was able to do in the previous session. You can see by the end of the session it went sunny, and that particular last lap was no improvement for a 1.3 second deficit off Kerakuma. So that's Takuma Miyazono, who got his Subaru Wrx on pole position. But this is going to be the second race and the final race of the video today, and as you can see, the weather conditions have returned to how they were at the start of qualifying. There's a slight bit of moisture on the surface water indicator on the bottom left of your screen, but as you can see, by taking Eau Rouge and Radeon absolutely flat out on the medium tyres, there's absolutely no concern in terms of grip deficit at this particular stage. We've started right ahead of Meta 7 Gear behind us, and he's driving the Subaru WRX. So, like, the Subaru is a pretty, I would say it's probably the most OP car in Group 3, but that doesn't really say too much, because I think the group in general has been made a lot closer with the recent update also. That also brought in some BOP adjustments, and given the fact that my car got a BOP buff, so I think they decreased the weight or something, and the physics got an adjustment making this car a lot more stable on corner exit. The Genesis has sort of been doubly improved, so I'm not really looking to make excuses about the cars really, because yeah, Group 3 pretty balanced now, so yeah, we're definitely just going to be focusing on the drivers and making sure we don't make mistakes, because Meta 7 is right behind us. He probably has a slight straight line speed advantage, especially in the slipstream, but that is sort of par for the course in terms of being in the slipstream. Another thing I want to mention actually, I'm finally running my very first fan-made livery. I think I'll probably put some skate photos over the top so you can have a look at the beautiful livery that Scotty has put together. You might see Scotty down in the comment sections quite a bit. I think he's left a comment on pretty much every single one of my videos that I've ever made. So obviously a really valued member of the community, and he's going to be one of the guys that will go, that will look back when I'm on 1,000, 2,000 subs and go, I was there since the very beginning, and he indeed was, and he indeed was a creator of this very first fan-made livery that I'm running on my Genesis X. So hopefully I can do the livery justice and bring home a good result here. So thanks very much, Scotty, for the livery as well. But as we finish up the first lap there, you can see the pace is pretty good, a 2:05.9, and having started the race on this lap, that lap time will be slightly askew. But I think by now you can probably see from the way I'm driving that this slight bit of moisture on the track is not really having an effect on the car at all. I think all it's really doing is just sort of creating a tiny bit of spray. You can see off the back of Miss Laro's Mazda RX Vision there, but definitely within a couple of laps that will be absolutely dry. So we can talk about the strategy for this race now. We didn't touch on it in the first race because I've really kind of wanted to compress that race to make sure this video wasn't too long. So all 3 tyre compounds are available. Actually, it's all 5 now technically. So you've got racing soft, medium and hard, and you've got racing intermediate and racing heavy wet tyres as well, but you can see the moisture is nowhere near the level required for even an intermediate tyre on. And given that the new pit lane is pretty much over double the length of the regular layout at Spa, we definitely want to be avoiding the pit stop because it's like a 40-second pit loss. So unless you're finding several seconds per lap on pace, you're not really going to be making back the pit loss. So we definitely have to avoid the stop. There was no tyre requirement, so you could complete all 12 laps no stopping on any tyre compound you liked, but it was really just finding out what tyre worked best on your car to last the 12 laps. I did a practice race in the Genesis using the soft tyres, so the fastest tyre compound available, and by sort of lap 8, 9, 10, we were dropping off the pace quite significantly. The tyre pace dropped off a cliff, and which meant that by the end of the race I was losing probably 3 seconds a lap to somebody who tried to also no stop on the hard tyre. So the soft tyres weren't viable, but they were drivable, you know, and I guess that's not saying too much, but you know, that they were sort of acceptable to drive on. You know, they were slow, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to try the medium. Miss Laro takes a slightly defensive line into the chicane there, and I think I broke a little bit too late as well, and I end up sort of looking up the outside there, but I'm not really ready to try and make passes there, as there's a little bit of fighting behind. That should release some pressure from Meta 7 gear if he starts fighting with Tanagazaru, and that will open up that gap behind, which means I can just focus on ahead. Spirit R appears to be struggling again. I'm not sure whether that GTR GT500 is the absolute best car in the race conditions, but towards the end of this third lap, I think it's all as we were. Gap behind is 1.9 seconds as we head into the braking zone. We brake a lot later than Miss Laro does, probably hold up behind Spirit R just a little bit, and Spirit R I think has got his stuff together there, and he's sort of right on the back of the guy up in fourth. I'm not quite sure who that is. And you can see on that particular lap we set a 17.9 race pace lap on pretty much a full tank of fuel. We run a little bit wide at La Source, so this has really got where my race is going to actually begin to not go my way, because all of a sudden, in a matter of one corner, I've lost the slipstream of Miss Laro there. Meta 7 gear, 1.1 seconds behind now, which isn't in the slipstream range, but it is close enough for me to start worrying about perhaps him having a little bit of a straight line speed advantage, and we'll see that as we head down this straight. Hopefully they all fight. and I think he is gaining ever so slowly. So there is a slight speed advantage in the WRX compared to the Genesis, but pretty much all I've got to sort of hold on now is that the trio up ahead will begin fighting, because I've obviously lost that slipstream, which isn't going to do my race any good. But if they can fight and get me back in the slipstream, that will obviously be pretty advantageous for me. We get it turned a lot better at the source hairpin there, turning in a lot earlier and getting a slightly later apex. We get a slightly better exit, but it's still not enough to be in the slipstream of Miss Laro. We're still about half a second, or half a tenth behind him rather. By lap 6 here, sort of the same thing. I'm just not getting the exits off these really low speed corners, of which there are two at the sort of starting of the lap. You've got the exit out of the last chicane, and then the exit out of turn 1, and what that has done is put Meta 7 gear in the slipstream. He's gained probably 2 or 3 tenths just down the Camel straight alone. We've hit the brakes slightly too late, just pushing the limits to try and not lose us any time to Meta 7 at all, and what that's actually done is given me a particularly poor run through Lacombe chicane, and he is now 5 tenths ahead. He's within the slipstream range before we even jump on the brakes for La Source hairpin. We get a pretty straight exit there, but we do take quite a slow mid-apex minimum speed. So, you know, I'm still trying to experiment. I don't know if I can hold him, eh? I'm still sort of experimenting with braking zones and how to take the corners when defending, so I simply didn't do enough practice. But I did more practice than, you know, is possible at some of the rounds, so that's pretty good. But Meta 7 definitely within the slipstream, 2 tenths behind me now, and as we head into Lacombe chicane, we get it slightly better than last time, but again, just a little bit too tight for that second part of Lacombe, and Meta 7 is going to reap a benefit from there. But as we get on the power here, the car steps sideways, I overcorrect, end up on the grass. Spirit R has crashed. Meta 7 gets 2 for 1, or he gets 2 for 0. He doesn't even have to put in any effort. He just has to continue driving in a straight line, because 2 drivers from ahead of him has made a mistake, and he's jumped up 2 positions in pretty much a split second. Damn it. And I was pretty frustrated with myself at that particular time, because I was able to hold off Meta 7 for 7 laps here, but I think what's beginning to happen here is my Genesis is struggling on the tyre wear, because I just cannot get the launch out of the corners. I'm also struggling a little bit to get the car turned at low speed, and you can see Spirit R is right up my trumpet here. So I think Spirit R, bar a couple of errors, is a very, very quick driver, probably should be and probably deserves to be a lot further up the road, but a couple of mistakes means that he's fallen back into the fight with the likes of me, who is just simply not as fast as Spirit R. So he's going to be looking to get past pretty swiftly, as promptly as he possibly can. He looks to the inside. I just lift off the throttle. I don't want to make too much of a battle out of this, because at this particular time I was thinking, now if I can just work with Spirit R, get his slipstream and sort of pull me a little bit further up the road, maybe I can, you know, mount a return attack on Meta 7, but he's got quite a significant gap at this particular stage, and given that the strength of that WRX, I think it's pretty good on its tyres, so I don't think I'm going to be able to actually get up close to the back of Meta 7 again. Spirit R has driven away. He's broken the slipstream quite convincingly to a gap of 1.3 seconds. Now my next concern is the guy behind, Gigagango, I think is how we'd pronounce that. Oh, I've messed up over Rouge Radeon, taking too much curb on the inside, and what that does is push me a little bit wide, push me close. Come on. No. It puts me too narrow for the final part, and I run wide on the exit. I got a half-second penalty for that, and Gaga, or yeah, Gan go behind. We'll just call him Gan, I think, for ease of commentary. He's got a lot closer to me now. We're going to have to serve this half-second penalty on the end of this lap. Oh, we've received a ram. We've been hit from behind. Gan has driven straight into the back of us, continues on, completes the move after shuffling me completely off the road. It's like not even a shuffle, he absolutely rammed me, and I can see he does get a 4-second penalty for that now. But because I've driven off the track, it's given me dirty tyres, and now Chupagetti and Takuan has caught up that gap that I probably would have been able to keep for the remainder of the race. Oh my god, why? I would have been racing these two. And after having served the penalty, if I didn't get rammed off like that, I would have been sort of about equal on the track with these two. I would have had an opportunity to fight with them. But you can see I served the penalty, and Takuan and Chupagetti drive away. Gan serves the 4-second penalty as well. Obviously a very frustrating turn of events, and a turn of events where I have lost quite a significant portion of time. And you can see that lap 10 there was a 2:25, so I've lost about 6 seconds there. Oh, Takuan's crashed. No, that Ferrari getting a little unstable in the latter stages of the race, which isn't too surprising given the mid-engine rear-wheel drive nature of that car. But that's about all the positions we were able to gain, and I almost bit it at the same corner as we did at this particular exact time on the last race. Gan is in the slipstream driving the Genesis X, so he's probably got a good amount of straight line speed. Spiritar is presumably recovering from serving another penalty, so all of a sudden we've gained 2 spots in the last couple of laps here, and we're up into 8th. Gan runs wide on Blanchimont, which gives him dirty tyres and will potentially give him a penalty, so he shouldn't really have enough grip to be able to mount a pretty big attack on the last couple of corners here. And as we exit the final chicane, Gan runs really, really wide. We end up across the line. We managed to bring it home in 8th. Oh, boy. Oh, my God. Man, Meta 7 got me. Subaru is just too good. Really quite frustrating, actually, because I'm looking back at that now. Meta 7 was plus 24. I was plus 29. That's a difference of 5 seconds. I lost 6 just from the mistakes on lap 10, the penalty and getting rammed off. So, really quite a frustrating end. But the thing I sort of held on to here is that even though I wasn't that happy with how the race went, I think I drove well enough in, apart from when I made a couple of little mistakes. But this result was good enough for 275. So, I actually decided to keep that, and the other part of the reason was because it was getting quite late at night, because these slots start at 8 PM for me, which isn't great. I kind of wish it started maybe 5 o'clock. That'd be a lot better, or maybe 6 o'clock or something. It's getting towards 8 is a little too late. I guess I don't have it quite as bad as New Zealand. I think their slot starts at 10 PM, which is quite ridiculous. But anyway, that's the first round there. This was actually round 2. I skipped the first round because it was on a night that didn't really work out for me in terms of where my work lined up. So a little bit of a limitation of the schedule again. But this race being on the Saturday with another race on the Sunday is a lot better than pretty much a race Monday to Friday. So I guess this third test season isn't too bad in terms of the schedule. But anyway, yeah, a little bit of a disappointing round, but ultimately the points earned for the position I finished in was actually acceptable, so that's where I decided to leave that one. I did do the next round. The next round is Group 4 at Trial Mountain, so keep an eye out for that video and make sure you get yourself subscribed so you don't miss out. But that's going to finish up this video today, so do hit the like button if you enjoyed. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos and streams from me. Do leave a comment as well, as questions, comments and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. That's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.